Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we will continue to respond to the live stream that Apus had with the most obvious fake philosopher in history, David Wood. For those who haven't been following, this is about the live stream that they had a couple of days ago to respond to one of the videos that Brother Farid did in response to Apus. And the title of that video, do Christians and Muslims worship the same God? Let's go and watch.
Hi everyone and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. Therefore, Jews use different words for God, such as Adonai, my Lord, or Hashem, the name, or Elah, or Elaha, God, which the Arabic Allah seems to have come from. The Christian and Jewish God's name is Yahweh, formed from 4 letters, in Greek known as...
So, I just have to pause a little bit. Here he shows that the word Allah has, the word in itself, supposedly he's assuming that it has roots from this Hebrew word Allah. It's possible. However, this kind of proves a simple point that regardless if it's a title or a name, regardless of how you want to call it, it has the root in the same conception of the same God, right? The Lord of the heavens and the earth, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Whether you want to call it a name or a title, it doesn't matter.
Okay, and what exactly does it say about the point here? This is very strange. Elaha is simply something that people used in order to refer to deity. The Bible uses the same word Elohim, or the word Eloh. It uses the same word to refer to the gods of different people, right? It uses the same word, in fact, to refer to gods that people made out of objects. It refers to them with the same exact word, Eloh. So just because Allah is from the same root, that does not mean that it has anything in common with the one God that Jews and Christians believe in. This is a very terribly uninformed position to have.
Well, actually, it's not uninformed at all. It's just your stupidity and low IQ that prevents you from seeing what this guy is actually saying. The brother is not saying that the evidence that Muslims and Christians worship the same God is that, the name of the Islamic God has root in Christianity or Judaism. That's not his argument at all. He was simply responding to your stupid argument, which suggests that just because the names are different, that means they are different gods. And the brother is saying, even if we accepted that, still, the name of the Islamic God has a root in Christianity and Judaism. He's not saying that's the ultimate proof that Muslims and Christians worship the same God. No, not at all. In fact, Muslims have all the evidences in the world that they are worshipping the same God as Christians and Jews. And we will talk about them very soon. Let's now carry on watching.
Anything you want to add, David?
Not at this particular juncture, but yes, you are correct. But I have to say in advance, I'm going to agree with some of what these guys said, but they're still going to be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds to me like David is telling Apus that I can't agree with every stupid thing that you said. I may be wrong though. Let's carry on.
I agree.
Let's keep going.
I agree. I'd like to point out one thing. So, if let's say people in the West, people all over the world, they're fans of The Undertaker. In the Arab world, we call him Al-Hanuti, okay? Or at least the Egyptians call him Al-Hanuti. Does this mean they're referring to a completely different wrestler that lives in, I don't know, an alternate universe? La, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I already see how that's a terrible analogy.
Yeah.
Well, it seems that Apus didn't listen to David Wood's advice. So let's listen to David Wood responding to Apus, not to Farid.
Well, so here's what they're getting right. Just calling the same thing, clearly calling the same thing and referring to it by two different names or two different words doesn't mean you're talking about two different things.
I don't know why you are nodding, Apus. Because that was one of the main arguments you made in your video. Yahweh and Allah are two different names. So what are you nodding to, Apus? Now let's listen to the most obvious fake philosopher in history, David Wood, who refuted his friend Apus in order to make a point. The problem is that point is ridiculous and stupid. So in other words, David Wood refuted Apus in order to make an Apus point. Let's listen to David Wood.
I have to point out they're undermining. Funny, you just mentioned Undertaker. And I'm saying they're undermining one of the main responses to a completely different argument. So this is complete. The point is save this clip because it's a refutation of something else that Muslims say. You'll recall, AP, that there is in the Quran Allah saying that if Muhammad were to deliver a false revelation and claim that it's from God when it isn't, Allah would sever his aorta. Right? So Allah would sever his aorta. That's the penalty. And then when Muhammad's dying, he's from the poison. He was poisoned by a Jewish woman. He's saying he can feel the poison that he ate severing his aorta. And one of the main responses that Muslims give to that is that there are two different words used for aorta. They both mean aorta, but there's two different words for aorta, right? And so they say, you see, it's not talking, it's not a fulfillment of the prophecy because it's two different words, because the aorta is sometimes called the life artery, or it can be called more specifically the aorta. And so they say, it's using two different words, even though they both words refer to the aorta. And so that's the refutation. But notice what Farid just said, hey, just calling it two different things doesn't mean you're not talking about the same thing. So it's a parallel. So as far as wrapping up this section, as far as what I'm talking about, if I were to say, look, if I'm a false prophet, may the Lord drown me in a pool of H2O. And then later I'm drowning in a pool of water and I go, I'm drowning in a pool of water. And you say, haha, you've been exposed. And then my defenders come along and say, no, he said he would be drowned in a pool of H2O, but he was drowned in a pool of water. Totally different words. So you see, it's not a fulfillment of this prophecy. And so that's the valid point that they're making, although it refutes what people say in response to other arguments, that, if you say H2O and you say water, you're clearly talking about the same thing, even though you're calling it different things.
Yeah.
Subhanallah, ya akhi, wallah. You see, I'm not trying to upset David Wood's sheep, but seriously, I mean, whichever university he got his philosophy degree from, I mean, they need to do something about it, because this university will be notorious for, having a graduate in philosophy like David Wood. Let's get into it. Here David is trying to show the hypocrisy of Farid and Muslim apologists. He is saying that when he claims that the prophecy of cutting the aorta of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has been fulfilled, he gets response from Muslims that, you see, these are two different words. They mean the same thing, but they are two different words. And then he gave that ridiculous analogy of the water versus H2O. Well, let me respond to this. There are various responses to this stupid and ridiculous argument that the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's aorta being cut has been fulfilled. And one of these responses, which I'm sure David is referring to, is the argument that these two words, which is watin, which is mentioned in the Quran, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ. That's the word used in the Quran, watin. This word and the word mentioned in the hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which is abhur. The argument that Muslims say is not that, you see, these are two different words. No, that's not the argument that Muslims make. The Muslims say that these two words mean completely different things.
By returning to the works of classical linguists and classical scholars, we find them clearly differentiating between al-abhar and al-watin. We find several scholars specifically stating that al-abhar is located in the back, while al-watin is located at the heart. This has been made clear by linguists such as Al-Athram, Al-Bandaniji, Al-Hunnai, Al-Suhari, and others.
Incorrectly. So there's Abhar and there's Watin. Imam Ibn Athir, may Allah have mercy upon him, mentioned one of the Arabic scholars, likewise Zubaydi in his Kitab Taj al-Arus and Al-Fayruz Abadi. These are scholars of Arabic language. They mentioned that Abhar is not the Watin. The Abhar is a vein in the back. Some say is the vein in the forearm. So it's not the Watin.
But the most obvious fake philosopher in history, David Wood, is trying to strawman the Muslim apologist argument and make it seem like they are saying, aha, the two words are different, they mean the same thing, but the words are different, therefore the argument has been refuted. So, as I told you, he refuted his Apus friend in order to make an Apus argument. Let's carry on watching.
And so that's the valid point that they're making, although it refutes what people say in response to other arguments. That if you say H2O and you say water, you're clearly talking about the same thing, even though you're calling it different things.
Yeah.
And if you call Mark Twain Samuel Clemens, well, that Samuel Clemens is his real name, but you're clearly referring to the same person when you refer to Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens. So just using different names doesn't mean you're talking about two different individuals. But it didn't seem like that was your real point, that just using a different name means that you're not talking about the same.
Well, I have to admit, David, that it's so kind of you to try to help your Apus friend and save him from this huge embarrassment that he is in. By claiming that you think that was not his argument when you did watch the video yourself. The title of the video was, "Do Muslims worship the same God as Christians and Jews?" And Apus spent half of the video talking about the difference of the names, Allah and Yahweh. Let's read the description under the video that Apus wrote. I repeat, it's Apus who wrote this description, not me or any other Muslim. Let's read. It's often claimed that Allah was the same God that Jews and Christians worshipped. Let's review this and see if Allah is Yahweh or a different God. How did Apus actually review that Allah Azza wa Jal was Yahweh or a different God? By spending half of the video talking about the differences of names. So tell me, Mr. Fake Philosopher, when someone says that Jews and Christians do not worship the same God as Muslims, and then spends half of the video talking about the differences between the names, is it irrational to conclude from this that his main argument is the two names are different, therefore they are not the same God?
The main point of the video is that Islam does use the same word, God, which, the Hebrew Bible also uses, or supposedly the word Allah comes from El-Elah, which comes from Elaha or Eloh and so on, which is a Semitic word which stands for deity. And in the Hebrew Bible, this word is used for the one God, but the one God's title is that, and his actual name is Yahweh, as the Bible says and reveals, and also mentions over I don't know how often, 6,000 times, and but Islam does not have that name. Islam only has that title because the Islamic people, or Muhammad, or whoever was whoever was involved in creating Islam, they thought that God's name is Allah. They had no idea about the name Yahweh at all. There is no mention of it in Islam, and Muslims deny that his name is Yahweh, right? So,
okay, let's stop here. Now, this is a good opportunity to show any one of Apus fanboys who's watching this video how stupid, literally stupid, his big daddy Apus is, and of course his fellow clown David Wood. Let me explain. It's one thing to say that Islam got the name of God wrong and therefore Islam is false. It's another thing to say Muslims do not worship the same God as Christians and Jews. These are completely different, contradictory arguments. Only a moron thinks that he can hold these two contradictory positions. And why they are contradictory? Because if you claim that Muslims got the name of God wrong, if you argue that, that means you already admit that Muslims worship the same God, but they got the name wrong. So you have refuted your old video. If you argue, however, that Muslims, worship a different God, that means they didn't get the name wrong because they're worshipping a different God. So, two things here. First, Apus refuted his old video. He has closed the case because he totally changed his argument. His argument in the video was Muslims and Christians don't worship the same God, and here is my first evidence, the names are different. Now his argument is, well, Muhammad ﷺ thought that the name of God was Allah. He didn't know, he had no idea about the name Yahweh. And the second thing is, Apus showed to his gullible sheep that he has low IQ. He argued two contradictory things. I honestly want to continue this, but sorry, we'll have to stop here and continue in future, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.